Hi folks, just a quick update on the coronavirus situation. This will probably be the last update I give you on this coronavirus. I think enough people are reporting on it. But just a quick update on what's happening and to just address some of the information that I'm seeing. As you can see here, I mean, the same story that they're pushing us. This came out of Wuhan City, out of the food market. They're showing you here that they believe it is a worldwide pandemic. Source and spread, all of this sort of stuff. The official line, folks, link will be below so you can look at it. You know, what to expect if you get it. All sorts of fear happening around this virus, folks, and that seems to be really what they're pushing is the fear. More than anything is the fear. They want people to be in complete fear about this, and there's bigger pictures to the whole thing. I think a lot of it is about locking down travel. But there has been one report that has been released, which is this one that I would like to address. This report that I'm getting sent to me by everybody seems to be circulating everywhere. Corona unmasked. Chinese intelligence officer reveals true magnitude of China's fake coronavirus crisis. This report is basically saying that this is a biologically engineered weapon. It's a bioweapon, and it's basically doing far more damage. It's got here, it spreads so quickly. Eventually they develop skin symptoms. Their bodies rapidly deteriorated, massive internal bleeding, walls of the arteries dissolved, they bled from their eyes and orifices. To put it in a more direct Western manner, they basically started to melt. Death occurred through multiple organ failure. This was preceded by 5 days of severe agony, blah, blah, blah. There's all sorts of reports coming out like this, folks, and I would suggest that this is simply not the case. And you can just look at the way people are dressed. This is not, you know, if this was the case, people would be in full hazmat suits all the time. You know, the doctors, everybody would be wearing these type of suits, folks. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as what people are saying. There's also other reports that are coming out, such as this one, saying that it is a biologically engineered virus, and there's a lot of people that are saying it's a lot worse than what we're being told. Now, you know, as I said, some of the reports that I've seen coming out of China, I'm not seeing people dressed in such a manner that would indicate that they are suffering greatly at the hands of this virus. I really wouldn't. I'm seeing far more interesting reports which indicate that this is a controlled operation. You know, I really would suggest this is a controlled operation. Even when you look at the hospitals that I showed you on the last report, if you didn't see the last report I did, I won't bother showing you the images again. They're in the report. Link will be below, which shows you that these hospitals they're building are basically death centers. They don't seem like hospitals at all. They seem more like detention centers and more like areas that are being used to basically detain people. I think that's really what it's more about, is detaining people rather than treating people. You know, and you look at the repercussions of this, the knock-on effect of all of this sort of stuff. Look at the protests in Hong Kong. Where have they gone? They're all over now, aren't they? You know, it's a great way of shutting people down, great way of shutting down travel. Have a look at this on this aircraft. These people being evacuated from China, being taken back to the United States. Have a look at the flight attendants on this aircraft, folks, if you think this isn't fear-mongering. Just check this out.
Show of hands, has anybody not finished it yet? The only reason I say this is it's going to get really weird when everybody gets off the plane and you cannot. Because you have to have that in order to leave this airplane.
Now, how's that get up that these people are wearing, folks? I mean, if you got onto an aircraft and you saw people dressed like that, what would you think? I mean, it's pretty outrageous. That's a pretty outrageous way for people to dress. But the point is, if the virus was as bad as what this insider report is saying, That's the way everybody in Hong Kong would be dressed. That's the way everybody in China would be dressed. That's the way all the authorities, the doctors, everybody would be wearing suits like that. But the fact that they're not, and the fact that they are wearing suits like that on the aircraft, shows just how paranoid they want people to be. And, you know, the economic effects of this are the big one as well. It's a great way to shut down China's One Belt, One Road system. It's a great way for China to be able to lock down their borders and basically cull their population, which is something that I think is most definitely going on. And it's also a great way to spread fear through Western communities. They're saying now that you can have this virus for 14 days. It can be in the air, breathing it. You can be giving it to people for 14 days before you know you've got it. So you just shouldn't go out and associate with anybody. This is the type of fear they're pushing. They're also saying it stay on surfaces and stay active for 9 days, so you shouldn't be using cash. How predictable is that, folks? You know, shut down travel, shut down interaction between people, stop using cash. China can lock down its borders, cull its population, and we can use this to put fear into all the rest of the world. You can see the way they're playing it, folks. That's what's going on with this. That's the way they're thinking. And I don't think that this virus is anywhere near as bad as what they're saying. Perhaps they have just released a little bit of something in that area to get a few people sick. Maybe they didn't release anything at all. But I think that what they're doing is they are categorizing anybody who is showing symptoms of the common cold as having coronavirus, and they're using that as a means to lock them into these detention centers, which are detention centers, folks. These are not treatment hospitals. When you look at these hospitals, you look at the amount of beds in some of these hospitals. These are not treatment hospitals. These are detention centers that they're using to simply lock people away. Have a look at the amount of beds in some of these hospitals, folks. Have a look at how close the beds are together. This is not for treatment. This is to just isolate people in one big warehouse. But if it was to treat people for diseases, you wouldn't put people in an area where the beds are only like 2 or 3 feet apart from each other, one big room where you would get so much cross-contamination of infection with people. Have a look at this. See, they're not worried about cross-infection with people, you know, and other reports I've seen, very, very disturbing reports. I mean, and again, it's hard to confirm some of these things because they're all edited together, so you don't know whether it's coming out on the same day or what. But I've seen other reports of, there was a woman who was pulled from her car simply because driving is outlawed. You're not allowed to drive in certain places. So there was a woman driving. She was stopped by 4 or 5 police who pulled her out of her car, dragged her to the ground, and she ended up stopping moving. I mean, it looked like they'd broken her neck. You can't tell. But she just suddenly was not moving, and they've just gone, well, what do we do with this prone body here? And they kind of picked her up and put her in a vehicle. There's another report that I saw of a guy getting tackled to the ground simply because he was wearing or not wearing a mask. He was out walking around and he wasn't wearing one of those little masks. But what are these little paper masks going to do if it's such an outrageous pandemic? If it's a virus which is literally turning your organs to jelly and causing people to melt, people wouldn't just be walking around wearing these little masks. They wouldn't be dragging people out of the cars. They wouldn't be touching people. They wouldn't be doing any of this stuff, folks. So you've really got to look at what the bigger picture is here and look at some of the propaganda that's being spread about this and just suss out for yourself what's true and what isn't. But some of these are quite disturbing. What I'm about to show you, this woman being dragged out of a car and these other people being tackled to the ground. But have a look at this, folks, and think about, would they be doing this if they were worried about cross-infection?
给他带派给他。来，咱们去带。好了，好了，去了。
你们不可以打女孩子的吧？
怎么也这个怎么也怎么也？
他们也没干嘛。
你那个心态就是，这个老子妈，他还能不能干路？这到底是打人。你看那边这个，有时候我。看不到，看不到，看不到，来了，哎，配合，
你他妈配合哈！
你不打过年的，你不在家对着干了吗？
我去死啊！我昨天在公园来了，他把我给铐了，铐他们生意把我罚了。
还后到哪一趴？在公园。
我没钱买。
你他妈的拿着刀子护哨的了，他妈谁都不让进去。
我没钱买口罩。没钱买口罩，昨天把我拉着车。
See, they're not worried about cross-infection, folks. They're just worried about isolating people. That's what I think they're doing. I think most of this is a psyop. I don't think that the infection is anywhere near as bad as they're telling us, and I think that what it's mainly about is putting fear into people, locking people down, and using it as an excuse to run a model that can then be rolled out by the rest of the world, should they choose to do so. You know, all they have to do is announce that there's been contamination of coronavirus in your country and the need to put all these measures in place. Look how effective China dealt with it. We need to do the same thing. You can see where they could take this if people simply run with the fear and allow themselves to be led by the official propaganda. So I think people need to look at it a little bit deeper, folks, and look at the bigger picture. But that's about all I wanted to say on that today. As I said, I don't think I'll be bringing you too many more reports on the coronavirus. I think there's enough information being put out there. I was actually thinking of bringing you one of my regular radio shows this week. If I can get that together during the end of the week, I'll try to do that. I also did want to have a woman on to discuss pedophilia in Australia. She has since pulled out of that interview because she said that she's made a deal. She's involved in a project to bring this information. I'm not sure who she's working with, but to bring this information out through some particular means. And she wasn't aware that she has signed up for an exclusive deal. So she said she's not able to come on and give the interview at this particular time. But she has sent me a lot of information. And I'm going to put together a report and bring that to you, hopefully within the next week anyway. As I said, I'm going to try to bring you a normal radio show this week. I'd like to try to get these out once a month, at least go back to doing my radio shows once a month and still bring you these type of interim reports in the meantime. It's just going to depend on my foot at the moment, folks. I'm sort of sitting here nursing a broken foot at the moment, which is not pleasant. But that's the way I go. You want to see my foot? I don't suppose you do, but I suppose there's people out there with a morbid sense of interest that like to see these things. I'll show you my broken foot at the moment, folks. I've actually broken it. I've got 4 bones broken in 7 different places. Well, I've got 2 bones that are broken. One's got a break and 2 fractures. One's got a break and 1 fracture. I've got 2 other bones that got fractures in them, which is just rather unpleasant. I'll show you though. I'll move this camera around and get a little bit disorganised here, folks, and I'll show you my foot. They give you these super boots to wear now. like a moon boot they call it. So you kind of like a removable cast, which is good, handy, better than having the other cast. But there's my feet at the moment, folks. You can see by the normal one and the other one. You can see here it's a little swollen. I've still got this piece of bone sticking through here. I've got to go back. I mean, I was flooded in here for a week. The day after I did it, I got flooded in. The day after I got flooded in, and then I'm just here with this broken foot. I managed to get to the hospital, and then the next day I get home, I get flooded in. I'm here for 5 days with a broken foot flooded in. But now the creek's down, so I can get out. I've got to go back to the hospital on Friday and get them to look at it. But as you can see, it's a little ugly, folks. Bit of bruising around the place. Bit of bruising you can probably see underneath there. I can't see where the camera's pointing. My heel's good. Look at my heel, beautiful. But the rest of the foot from about here down is just completely destroyed, which is a great shame. I got a couple of fractures in here. I've got a broken bone through here. I got a broken bone through here. This was black the other day. But you can see I've got this big bruise coming right up around through here. So it's a little ugly, folks. It's a little ugly. So I've just got to get the foot organised, and it's going to depend on the foot. The foot is also going to depend on whether I travel to the UK in May as well. I mean, I would really like to go and do these talks I've got in the UK in May in Europe. I'm supposed to talk at Bicycle Day in Holland as well. A friend of mine has got an event there I'd like to speak at, and I'm supposed to be in the UK for AV11 this year. So I'm hoping this foot is going to let me do it. It's going to depend on what happens when I go back to get an X-ray this Friday to see what they're saying about my foot, whether they need to put a screw in the side there to put that bone that seems to be poking out the side a little bit. But it's a little bit uncomfortable, folks, so that's been kind of slowing me down a little bit with the reports. Plus I recently went through that whole attack, and if you haven't seen it, there was an interview I did on the Kev Baker show, which you'll find in my favourites. I'll put a link below so you can go check it out, where I actually went through a lot of what happened on that night and explained a lot of it. But I will talk about that again at a later date when I've sort of processed it a little bit more. And I'd like to put out a thank you to the many people who've contacted me who've had similar experiences. I was actually contacted by the host of a very popular radio show who said he got a lot of healing from my reporting on that, because he said exactly the same thing happened to him 7 years ago, like to the letter. And he's never been able to speak about it. He's just had this thing inside and he thought he was going crazy, and it wasn't until he heard me explain it and he went, oh my God, that's exactly what happened. And he said he got a lot of healing from that. And a lot of the other people that have contacted me to offer me support, and those that have contacted me that said it was actually very healing for them to hear it as well. I really appreciate those emails that you've sent me. And I also really appreciate the people who've sent me so much information on Port Arthur. I have to look through some of the stuff that people have sent me. I haven't gone through it all yet, but I'm hoping that there will be in there some of the files that I lost when my computer got hacked a year ago, or a year and a half ago. But that will be coming out soon as well, folks. But I will get some more reports out to you soon, as soon as I get on top of this foot a little bit. But I'll try to get a radio show done either this week or next week, and I'll continue these short reports coming in the interim as well anyway. But thank you for listening to this one, folks, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again soon. Again, I'm really sorry to those who went to Acapulco that I couldn't get there. I actually tried to do the Zoom conference as well and do a presentation over Zoom, but my connection wouldn't allow it. So that's just the way it goes, folks. But thank you to everybody who sends me so many kind emails and who send me so much support. And I will bring you another report as soon as I'm able. And I look forward to those who will be coming to see me at these talks in Europe, if I'm able to get there and do them, foot permitting. But that's it for me now, folks. I look forward to speaking to you again soon. In Lakesh.